Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and I'm out on another walk exploring the heritage, landscape and countryside all around me. And today I'm doing an experiment. I want to concentrate on today's video about the sounds that we hear when we go for a walk. So what I'm going to do on today's video is I've brought with me my little Zoom recorder. Now this isn't Zoom that people think about when they're having interactions. I know we've had this COVID breakdown and people are talking to each other on a web service called Zoom. This is a different thing. This is a recorder. So let's just call it a audio recorder. So I'm going to take my audio recorder. Now I've got a microphone here under my jumper, but that's a very localized microphone. I'm hoping to get a bit more sounds from this when I go walking. So I'm deliberately starting my walk here in Offington Drive, which is right past the road, which I suppose is the A24 really, into Worthing where I live. And as you can hear and see, it's a very busy road. So I probably don't need this to get that sound. If we look this way, however, Offington Drive now is a very picturesque, beautiful estate with some very lovely houses. Thank you very much. Probably worth quite a fortune. Go back 100 years, if we look on the side-by-side maps or OS maps of 100 years ago, this was farmland. And this is, you know, what happens with urban development. Things get, oh blimey, traffic has stopped for a moment. And this is what happens. Houses get built on. It's happening more and more and more. And because of that, noise levels, there we go, are going up. So I want to take a walk and see if we can actually hear a little bit of nature when we go strolling on our walks, and if we can eliminate some of these noises of the trucks. Well, as you've seen, I've just walked along to get on the footpath. Now this footpath, it's an interesting footpath because it comes off, and I'll put a map on the screen of course, and it takes a pretty direct route. It's an alternative route really to Sisbury Ring, the Iron Age hill fort, and of course the Neolithic flint mines which are up there, and it's a beautiful part of the world and world famous. But this isn't necessarily a route that most people would come, because probably only the residents around here really know about it. But it is a terrific route, and we've got this tunnel through the trees. A little later on we should come past the point that there was a windmill. I'll tell you about that a bit later. So I haven't come far up this track, and already we're starting to hear some wildlife and particularly birds, and the diminishing sounds of the road. I want to enhance the sound, so I'm going to try and use this, and if I just turn this volume up fractionally, I'm going to turn it on, okay, and I'm just going to tell myself this is the first part up the path, and let's have a little listen for a moment. Now I'm not even going to pretend to identify the birds. I can hear wood pigeon and lots of other high-pitched tweets. But notice there's still the rumble of the road in the background. We're going to go further up, see what else we can hear. Now, as a filmmaker, I'm interested in the sounds because it helps tell the story. One of the things that I think that we do as a human species is that we almost cut out the sounds that we don't want to hear. Like the road, very often we hear it, but we sort of don't hear it. The other sound that is the sound of our feet on, in this case, the twigs and the flints as we walk. So that's another thing I just wanted to amplify a little bit. It's interesting, I've just come off the path a little bit and there's this area of trees. Either side of the path, I should explain, there is a golf course, and that's, I think now it's back in operation. I've heard, although I haven't managed to capture the audio, people swinging their clubs, hitting the ball, and it's a distinct sound as you walk up the path. But there is on the map this area called Mill Plantation. And it was here 100 years ago. Of course, the golf course wasn't here, and this was just open farmland. And I think this is it. So this is obviously 100 years extra growth, but it's lovely to see this still here. Now, a little north, and it's difficult to say because I didn't bring the Ordnance Survey map or anything to actually pinpoint the thing, but I think is where Broadwater Mill is. And I'm going to see if I can find that in a minute. So it's nice to have found this little area. There's these little footpaths that come through, which I don't know whether they're for the benefit of the golf users to come, the golf players, I suppose, to come across to either side of the path and through here, or whether it's just a little sanctuary. But again, beautiful sounds to listen to. Wow, what an amazing tree this is. Absolutely sublime. Now, I've just come back up the path north as I suggested, and then I've come in a bit, and if we look on the map you'll see that just to the left is the position of what's known as the Broadwater Mill. Well, turns out that although it's called the Broadwater Mill, and it would have looked down onto Broadwater, it's part of the Offingham estate, or it would have been back then. And here it was. The first mention of the mill in the records is in the, I think, the mid 18th century, 1700 and something. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but presumably windmills would have been probably much older, and here on the landscape, of course, as they were very important for grinding corn. It was a flour mill, and it struck me the lane I've been walking up must have been the lane, you know, think of it as a public footpath to Sisbury, probably a very old track, and it was utilised to bring the flour down from the hill and the grain up the hill to the windmill. But where exactly is the windmill? You can't really see it. There's a sort of dense bit of, I don't know, tree, woodland growth. It's the only way I can describe it in the middle there, lots and lots of very thin branches, sort of all up there. And I had a little poke around just before I started filming, and there's the sense in the ground of a circle. There's no building, there's nothing there to see. In fact, I was hoping to see some flints, because the roundhouse is a one was a one-storey roundhouse made of flint. So the mill was a black post mill, and it had 4 sweeps. In Sussex we call them sweeps as opposed to sails. And it had 2 stones, 2 grindstones, not 2 on top like that, 2 sets of that and that. So quite a big mill then, quite a powerful mill presumably, and it was operating, as I say, from this particular mill at least, from the mid-18th century up until 1910, when there were reports of it had ceased working, and a lot of mills across the country started to stop there because the roller mills were becoming on stream. They were more powerful, they were positioned by the ports when a lot of grain was coming in from overseas, and they could be milled and then shipped out again. But it stayed in a derelict state until sometime during the First World War, and then it was dismantled. Well, that's really my walk done and dusted for today. I'm going to take the last little bit. We're going to end on whatever sounds we've got here. Now there is some sort of water treatment or storage thing just on the other side of the path, and then there's some golfers, and I can hear a very deep hum in the background, so not the best and most auspicious sounds that we've got here. But it's interesting to get to a historic site where this would have been busy with farmers arriving with their grain, as I said, and trucks coming down that little lane with horse or oxen pulling those old wagons, and possibly coming across the downs, who knows, and maybe from the other side of Sisbury. But let's finish with a little bit of audio from what we can hear. And if you can hear that, there's a very deep sound of something. Doesn't sound like a plane. And if you've enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to follow, like and subscribe. Become a patron, support what I do, and I'll be out again. So here's the last bit of audio. Till next time, bye-bye. And I don't know what that is. And the irony is, you get up onto the downs to get away from the sound of trucks and machinery, and we've ended up with the sound of trucks and machinery. Bye-bye.